Some sciences have had a major impact on the modern world, but they are not these sciences that have attracted attention with a great deal of theory. To cite an example, the most influential science perhaps in the modern world has been chemistry. We don't think very often of chemistry, but all our technology is directly or indirectly a product of chemistry. For example, the oil industry. Oil was discovered. Chemists went to work to break down the oil into a variety of things. One of the byproducts of the work of chemists was gasoline. The problem with gasoline was there was no use for it. For years they were burning it up. Along came some inventors and began to develop very simple horseless buggies. These were developed in terms of the known science, the steam engine. The chemists came along and said, look, we have a substance that you can use. Now we've got to develop something in the way of a motor that we'll utilize. If somebody had told you in 1900 that investment would be best in the area of the automobile industry, you would have been skeptical. Otto Scott, in his Professional, deals with this in a very interesting comment. And I quote, "There is a lingering story about a young man who talked to an elderly financier at the time, approximately 1901 or so, regarding the expert's opinion of the future of the horseless carriage. The financier began with the examination of the limitations of these new uncertain vehicles in the context of general conditions. In order for them to travel, he said, they need a special track, for they get stuck in mud and snow and cannot operate over rough terrain. Therefore, new roads would have to be built everywhere. At the same time," he continued, "they can operate only a limited distance because their fuel is exhausted. Therefore, these new roads would also have to have fueling stations built every so many miles to meet that need. And since the horseless carriage is subject to frequent breakdowns, such fueling stations would also have to employ special crews to make repairs. In order to make the repairs, the crews would have to stock spare parts. And in order to have spare parts, special factories would have to be constructed, with all their attendant equipment, personnel, and expense." The financier leaned back. "Young man," he concluded, "when I consider all the factors that would have to be put into place before the horseless carriage could become a common vehicle, it would seem the world itself would have to be changed to meet the needs of such machines. I wonder that you bother to inquire about their long-range possibilities." I think that's very well put, very logical. Except, of course, you had chemists at work, and vast amounts of gasoline that were just being burned up, and chemists, practical working chemists for various oil companies, wanted to put it to work. And they got together with the experimenters in horseless carriages, and you know the results. All those impossible developments followed. Now, that's one example of what chemistry did. Thus, if you were to write a history of science in the 20th century, really you'd have to say very little about Darwin, except the failures to prove his theory. Very little about all the geological speculations and paleontological speculations, which fill your textbooks now. You'd have to say a great deal about chemists, and what chemists have done to create a vast variety of new things. Every one of us, in our homes, in our clothing, every day, are utilizing things that chemists have developed. So it is important for us to teach science intelligently, because an intelligent understanding of science is very different from the kind of thing you get taught in the schools today. You hear next to nothing about chemistry when you get a history of science, but it's basic. And our world is being changed moment by moment by more men working in laboratories and developing new things. In one area after another, the chemist at work is revolutionizing our world. We must not confuse academic science with research science. Textbooks are written usually by professors. Professors love to exalt professors. So what do you get? A long history of theoretical science, page after page about Darwin and his influence. And everything that is described in these textbooks on the history of science and in science textbooks and in science teaching has had no effect on our world. Take away what the practical research scientists working for industrial corporations have done, and the whole modern world disappears and you're back to the horse and buggy.